Justin Kahn, former YC partner, host at The Quest, and co-founder Twitch. And moderator Alexandra Sternlicht, reporter Forbes Under 30.
Thanks so much, guys. Really looking forward to an exciting panel today. Joe and Justin, thank you so much for joining me. Today's conversation is about the foundation of a healthy and fulfilling life, mental health. Mental health has become such a buzzword, so I wanted to begin by defining it. It's a personal, social, emotional, and psychological well-being. And if you have any questions for our panelists today, please feel free to pop them into the chat and I'll try and get to them at the end. With that in mind, I'd love to kick it to Justin to start. Justin, you co-founded Twitch and sold it to Amazon for $1 billion. And then you raised $75 million for a new age startup law firm called Atrium. That failed and you had to sunset the company. Now you've raised a $50 million seed fund and are working on Kin, an app for positive habit formation. How do you get the motivation and confidence to know when to end something? And on the other side of that, how do you get the motivation and confidence to start fresh?
Yeah, so we had a big outcome with Twitch, which took a long time. Kind of went through the whole entrepreneurial journey, the ups and downs, and then after 8 years, sold it to Amazon. But then, I had this feeling that it wasn't enough, so I wanted to go back and do more and do something bigger. And I was very ego-driven at the time. Raised a lot of money, like $75 million, and then spent a lot of money on a company that ultimately didn't work, which is tough. It's tough to have a big win and then go back to the well and have a failure, like a massive failure. And so for me, being able to deal with that and then the aftermath and pick myself up, that was all about, disconnecting how I felt from how things were going in the outside world, from the extrinsic, am I making money or being successful, and really working on what are the internal things every day that contribute to daily wellness that make me happy every day. And so those were, practices like gratitude, meditation, exercise, and making sure that I just could build consistent habits. And I would say that's really the foundation of life for me now, is just making sure I feel good every day.
Yeah, putting your everything into something and not getting the result you want is one of the hardest things in life. Joe, have you had an experience like this?
Say that again. I'm sorry, I lost you there.
I said putting your everything into something and not getting the results you want is one of the hardest things. I'm wondering, have you had an experience like this?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone watching. Hi, Justin. Hi, Alexandra. Thanks for having me on. This is really great. And I'm excited to speak on one of my favorite topics, mental health. I have had experiences where things haven't gone my way. One memory really sticks out to me. I was doing I made a solo record about 7 years ago, and having this success that I had with my brothers for so long, that feeling started to get comfortable. I felt like my next venture or my next project was just going to be as successful, or have as many people buy the albums. And I had a lot of cooks in the kitchen at the time, a lot of people giving advice, and my direction was kind of shifted from what was authentic to me. And the outcome didn't have the reception that I was expecting, but a lot of good came from that experience, where I had to do some checking in on myself. I thought something was wrong with me, so I'd go to the doctor all the time asking him, can you just do a full body scan? What's going on here? And after my third or fourth visit to a different doctor, he just suggested therapy. And that was my first experience trying that. And it really was life-changing for me. I was able to realize there was a lot of places in my life that are moving a million miles a minute, and I wouldn't stop and just check in on myself, which is so important. So since then, I still do therapy, and I've added a lot of mental health wellness tips for myself that I've just collected over time. And speaking to Justin, even since I think a few days ago, I've been stealing some of his things that he does, just because it's so helpful in my daily routine to make sure I'm looking after myself. So I'm giving 100% to my fans, to my family, to my friends, to my loved ones, and not holding anything back.
Can I point out one thing about this is that both Joe and I can immediately tell stories about how things didn't break for us in certain times, and from the outside, I think a lot of people would look at, he's one of the most popular artists in the world, like a sort of billion-dollar company, and be like, those guys have it all figured out. Everything's working for them, and it's probably always coming up aces. But one thing I've learned is, like, no matter who you are, how successful you are, you're going to go through the human experience, which involves
absolutely,
joy and sorrow, right? It's a roller coaster. And if you don't figure out how to live with yourself, no matter what's going on outside, you're always going to have a difficult time.
Yeah. And I think it's easy to find negativity everywhere you look. I mean, it could be from social media or the news, whatever it may be, or you can look in the mirror and start thinking about certain things, figuratively and literally, and being able to know that you're grounded and you're able to make sure that this is okay. So everything else is anything that comes your way, you're able to get over those hurdles. And it's something, Justin, we spoke about on the phone, how we both, those things that happened to us, we were able to realize what it came down to was ourselves, and being like, okay, I need to look at who I am as an individual before I give more to the world.
Yeah. And on that topic, I mean, therapy is an amazingly useful tool. However, the reality is not everyone has access to it. Are there any things that you guys would recommend people do in lieu of therapy? Any daily practices that you've adopted that have been really helpful?
Absolutely. I can only really speak to what I do and what has helped me, because I totally agree. It's not always easy for people to get certain help, but luckily through Justin's new app, I'll be on it. But I wake up every morning and the first thing I do is meditate. And that can be 3 to 5 minutes. And sometimes I'm actually brushing my teeth while I'm meditating, but at least I'm doing some of the work and checking in. And I also write out a gratitude list. And that could be, I'm grateful for the cup of coffee that's sitting right here, that's getting me going, or I am grateful for health and safety for all my friends and family during these difficult times. So the list can be short or long. And I do all of this before I check my phone and respond to messages, emails, go on social media. And I also try to exercise. I like the idea that I can physically feel good, and that helps my day.
Yeah, I mine is just the inverse of Joe's. It's like the same things, the same building blocks. Gratitude is really important. Gratitude journal, and then exercise and meditation. Try to do those every day as the foundation. One thing I'd say about therapy was, I was resistant to therapy for a long time. Like, my mom is actually an MFT, emergent family therapist, and she told me, you should go. And it wasn't until I hit like a really deep, dark breaking point in my entrepreneurial journey where I was just so depressed that I had to go see someone. And so, I think it's a very cathartic experience, and I encourage people who have access to go try it and keep an open mind. But then the other thing is, there's a number of like people who are trying to innovate on therapy online, to make it more accessible. So there's apps like 7 Cups of Tea, which is like peer-to-peer counseling, and there's many others, and I'd encourage people to check those out too.
Yeah, there's so many amazing apps just like yours that are doing amazing things to make therapy more accessible to everyone. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about something that people often cite as a mental health struggle. Joe, people care a lot about what you're doing. When you post an Instagram video jogging over a bridge, it becomes headline news. How do you deal with the pressure? This is true. You can look it up. How do you deal with the social pressure of knowing people really care what you're doing and expect a lot from you?
Well, I would say that you really get used about it with that is that I don't know if you missed that. I was saying you don't get used to it, you get better at it, and how to handle certain whether if it's social media or reactions. I make sure to protect certain things in my life that I'm very private about. I have my music where I can tell my stories and show my heart and go on social media and try to bring fans into your world, because that is one of the beautiful things about social media, is that the connections with fans are right there at your fingertips. You can go on an Instagram live and you're speaking, or right now we're speaking to thousands of people. And Justin and I were talking right before we got on here, is that we have 6 degrees of separation. Justin TV, early on, we helped, not we helped, but he helped us on the platform reach out to our audience. And so I think you have to find ways to pick and choose how much you want to give yourself to the world. I don't know why it's headline news or news at all that I go running over a bridge, which I find comedic. But I think if you can have the control of how much you share with everyone, then that's part of the beauty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And speaking of control and sharing, Justin, you founded one of the largest social media networks in the world, which is Twitch. And you've been really vocal about how you gave up drinking. Can you talk about what led you to that decision and how you continue to stay strong?
Well, yeah, with drinking specifically, it was like, I guess, through my career and through my life, really, I was not very good at sitting with difficult experiences and emotions. So, if I felt anxiety about, is this company going to work? Is my startup going to fail? Like, I would try to numb that. And there were a lot of different mechanisms for doing that, or tactics. I would, watch a whole season of Netflix or something in one night. But then, some of the time I just drink to like escape my emotional anxiety or guilt or feelings that were difficult and challenging. And at a certain point, I kind of realized that, and I was like, it's not healthy. It's not working. It didn't work very well. It always came back. So I think realizing that it wasn't serving me anymore was, that was part of it. And then what helped me was putting it out on social media and saying like, oh, I'm quitting drinking. Cause I knew that I was someone who's like a very approval seeking person. Like I care a lot what other people think about me. And so I kind of used that as the hack. So to get me like started, I was like, oh, I don't want to be a hypocrite. So if I tell the world I'm going to quit drinking, then I'll stick with it. And it's been a couple of years now. So that worked for me. And the other thing that worked is using a habit tracker. So just every day I open this app. I've actually built one. I like habit tracking so much. I built this app called Kin to do that. And I just open it up and press this button that's like, I didn't drink today, or like whatever habits I want to adopt. And that's just kind of like a little tiny micro boost to help you, get some momentum.
Yeah. So you invested in sobriety instead of losing drinking. Joe, flipping this to you, is there anything you've given up to gain something and invest in it?
Yeah, absolutely. Throughout the years, I've tried different things, whether if it's taking a break from drinking here and there, or even just recent my new things. I've given up cheese for the time being, so I'm seeing how that goes. And it's nothing that I just want to also kind of test my limits and see how I can balance, not necessarily just about cheese, but just like putting myself through different challenges like that, whether if it's food or also investing in my personal growth. I have the similar almost attitude as Justin, where when I see I've reached a certain amount of days that I've done something, whether if it's meditate or Duolingo, and I'm learning Italian very slowly, like that helps me, because I feel like, and I have followers on the account, and it makes me feel like somebody's watching my progress. And Justin, it's inspiring, and I love hearing your story. I'm surrounded by of amazing sober friends, and watching their journeys and seeing where they are now, and how it's just helped their growth in as people, but also individuals in the workplace is really a wonderful thing.
Thank you. I got one for you as like a personal challenge. I recently completed a 5-day fast.
Wow.
Eat for 5 days, and that was it was a really wild.
Did you do it? Was it a
spiritual
fast,
experience.
or was it just completely fast?
No, it was a fast. I just drank water and decaf coffee and
Wow.
electrolytes. Yeah, it yeah, it was intense. So I mean, if you're looking for like a challenge,
That is
thinking
a
of like
challenge. I don't
personal
know if I
challenge,
could go
That
with.
sounds really challenging.
I feel like I could try, but the decaf coffee thing would be the highest
Oh,
challenge for me
you could
without
drink,
the
you could just
caffeine.
drink. Yeah, you could just drink normal coffee.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think I will let you know if I give it a try.
All right. Yeah. The second day is the hardest. So, after day two, I'll kind of, it just,
I'll try the no cheese for now, and I'll let you know.
Yeah, start with no cheese, and then maybe you can not eat for 5 days.
Right.
But you got to start somewhere. So I want to we have about 5 minutes left. So I wanted to take the last part of this panel to get to some audience questions.
Oh, wonderful. Please.
They're coming in and they're wonderful. So one question from the audience is, when pursuing a new goal or building a company, how do you deal with critics? Do you block out everyone and go it alone?
I find, at least for myself, I like to hear what people are thinking of, whether if it's film or TV or a new investment that I'm a part of, or just new music. I would love to hear the feedback. I think it's wonderful. I personally, at this point in my life, limit the amount of searching I do. So I'm not going to search for comments because I am looking for the negative ones. So I try to shy away from those as best as I can. When I perform now, I don't even like watching myself. It's done. If the team is happy, my brothers are happy, cool. Like, I don't need to sit there and critique myself, because I'm my own worst critic, and I'm going to sit there and analyze everything. So I definitely limit the amount of times I search for comments or reactions.
Yeah, I think for me, I used to be really afraid of feedback because I was afraid like people wouldn't think it was good, or and I had a lot of like ego tied up in how my work was perceived. And so now, though, it's like I think I'm more feedback seeking, right? Like, when I start off a project, I want to get people's opinions, because I'm no longer, my identity isn't as tied to like, is this good or not, or do people think it's good? And I feel like that actually helps you make a better product or company or project or whatever it is.
Absolutely.
Another question from the audience. This is a good one. How do you deal with toxic family or friends? More specifically, the conflict between wanting more for them without giving too much of yourself.
It's an interesting question.
Yeah, it's a good one.
You have to ask yourself, like, why don't I accept the world as it is? I think that's a question you should, that's been very helpful for me anyways, to constantly ask myself, and to try to understand. Like, a lot of times we put it on other people. We're like, oh, they're doing something to me, they're not changing, they're treating me a certain way, and you're kind of blaming someone outside of you for your own emotional state. There's this book by Anthony DeMello called Awareness that I really recommend, that kind of talks about this. And when you have more peace for yourself and accept things as they are, then it's just so much easier to navigate the world. And that's not to say eventually, you won't try to make the world change, but I think acceptance is a good place to start.
He nailed it. I can't add more to that. That was beautifully said.
So look inside yourself to deal with those toxic people in your life. We have just a little bit of time left. So I would love to ask this question, which I think hits home in a lot of things we talked about, which is, what was the driving force after failure other than feeding ego? Coming from our audience.
I think for me, it's joy, right? Like, before, I was like, oh, I need to make more money, be more successful because people like me more, because I need more, I want to make more, whatever, right? That's why I started, try to start more big companies. And after that broke down for me, it was like, what is my joy? Like, what do I love to do every day? If people weren't watching, if nobody looked at it, if I didn't make any money, what would I do just for fun? And when I identified those things, that's what I want to spend my time on. And I have fun with it every day.
I have to agree. I remember when me and my brothers decided to call it quits, and I went through a period of time where I didn't know what was next for me, and I was searching at every outlet, whether if it was trying this TV show, or I just living in New York and riding my bike all day. What makes me happy? Like stripping it all back, and ultimately, I love music, and I wanted to find a way to do music where I was just completely 100% myself, having fun, the joy of that. And that's when I started the band DNCE, and we just had a wild ride for years and years, and we were just having the best time. And it came back to the love of music. And I wasn't thinking about this, if it was going to succeed, if it was going to fail. I just was like, I'm happy, and this is my weird, wild world. And if people like it, then they ultimately like me, because this is who I am, and take it or leave it. And it just goes back to being authentic to yourself and seeing how some great, usually wonderful things come from that. Depending if you spend the time to make sure that you're being 100% you. So this has been lovely getting to hang and speak to everyone and watch.
A great session. Thanks,
yeah,
guys.
This is amazing. Thank you so much, guys, for everything that you've shared with us today. I think I speak for everyone in the audience when I say we're so grateful for your vulnerability and just the wealth of experience that you guys have had. So thank you, and look forward to seeing you on the etherwebs.
Sounds good.
All
Thanks,
right,
you guys.
bye.
Bye, everybody.